Welcome to the show. So today we're going to talk about why I don't like starting with a bunch of small properties, why you want to try to get scale as quick as possible. And if you already have started and bought a bunch of properties, kind of built up a smaller portfolio, how you could possibly exit and get into bigger stuff, change your mindset, and get into the stuff where I believe scale really does create wealth long term. So I'm going to go through today and just talk about a few things, what I would do if I'd already built up maybe 100 units in 10 unit properties, how I would get rid of those to start building the bigger portfolio. And I think first we'll start on just some of the benefits of scale that we touched on. The first one, from pretty much every aspect, and when you buy bigger properties, you'll see this firsthand, right? You only have, on 100 units, you might own one property instead of 10. You have one roof that's going to go. The difference in changing that roof versus 10 smaller ones is huge, right? You have all the maintenance, you're running around. It's the management of it that makes it very difficult on the small properties. If you're third party managing, it makes a big difference too. A rent roll on an 8-unit building might be $100,000. So if you're paying someone 4 or 5%, that's a couple $1,000s a year to look after that property versus a big property where maybe the rent rolls $1 million or $1.5 million, and you have a good amount of money there to actually hire proper staff. They're on site. The tenants are going to know them. They're not running around to different properties. So there's all the benefits of scale. Your financing's generally better. Once you get over a certain loan amount, usually you get better interest rates. The brokers are more excited to work with you. If you have a financing broker that's doing a $10 or $20 million deal, their fee's worth their time. If you're doing it on $1 million piece of property, it's so small that they don't have a lot of time. And the reality is that the time it takes you to buy an 8-unit is the same, could even be longer than it is to buy a 100-unit. So if you imagine trying to buy those 10 throughout a couple years to get to 100 units, there's so much time and effort, and the lawyers are involved, and there's so many little things that can go wrong. And it's also the person that you're buying and selling from. With larger assets, when you get bigger, it's a more sophisticated buyer and a more sophisticated seller. A lot of the stuff, they're going to have all the information. They will have had the building. So normally with the smaller properties, it's going to be very hard to sell them as a portfolio. Not a lot of people who want 8-unit properties are going to have the ability to buy 100. So try to sell them off. You could try to package 2 or 3 together. What I think I would do is separate the portfolio in the lowest performing half and the highest performing half, and expect, you might even lose money on the lower stuff, but that's what's going to eat up a lot of your time and energy. You probably have a couple really good buildings that would sell easy, but if you kept them, it wouldn't be a big headache. And I would try to get rid of the cheaper stuff first. If you have to lose money on it, there's also an opportunity cost to holding that. In my opinion, the smaller stuff's never going to appreciate as much as the bigger stuff. It's going to be a different tenant base. It's, like I said, it's going to be hard to manage. So the sooner you can move your money from the smaller stuff into a bigger property, I believe the more money you're going to make in that property. If they're both in the same market, a big building is just always going to perform better than the smaller ones. You don't have the vacancy risk. 100 units, to have 5% vacancy in that building, it's 5 units, but on the smaller ones, if you have 1 or 2, the vacancy is really big on those properties. So I think the next part is just getting around the right people, on your team, whether that's realtors, lawyers, those type of people. If you've always done the smaller property, that's generally going to be a different realtor that sells a 10-unit property than the ones who sell 100 or 200-unit properties. So start reaching out to those people, and if you tell your story, explain what you're doing and say, hey, I'm liquidating these 50 units. I'm going to have this amount of capital. I want to get into something bigger. Be very descriptive on, hey, here's what we want value add or slight value add, B class. We like these neighborhoods and we want it to be 50 units, 100 unit plus. If you tell that story, and you can also show we've already managed 100 units over here, whatever the number is, and we have the capital coming to us, it'll be a lot easier to get your foot in the door. And then once you buy one or you start looking at them, you're going to be introduced to other brokers, other owners, things like that, and you'll be in that ecosystem. For me, my whole kind of everything changed the first time I toured a bigger building, a 100-unit property, and I walked into the mechanical room, and it was kind of this aha moment where I was like, we had the next biggest building that was 46 unit, but it had been built for condos, so there was 46 furnaces and 46 water tanks. And you walked into this one, it was 100 units, and it was just one big boiler system, two big hot water tanks, and it was very clean, very big, and it made a lot of sense to me. I'm like, you're just going to do maintenance on this one thing. We're not going to a bunch of different locations. And it kind of changed my perspective. When you start even underwriting deals like that, you'll see the benefits of scale. You only have one parking lot. You only have one lawn. The benefits of scale and the benefits of management it'll be easier to get your head around buying something a lot bigger than you've ever thought about once you start looking at it and touring them. So similar to the realtor, when you're starting to look at bigger stuff, reach out to your broker. If there's someone who does bigger deals, if they don't, find someone who does, who specializes in maybe $10 million plus. The loans, they're all going to be very similar as far as like structure, down payment, but it's just going to be a lot bigger. You need to know what that looks like on your end, and that even will help you going to the realtor saying, hey, we know we can get, if it's 95% or 85% loan to value, we have that amount. We qualify for, you need a certain net worth in order to get those loans. You want to make sure you qualify for that. That's a hurdle for some people. So maybe you have to get someone to come in and be a co-signer even just on the net worth side. But that's all stuff you can figure out. And once you get it, it's kind of, you'll see it and be like, oh, this is pretty easy. This is just the exact same thing, but bigger. And once you do one, I don't know very many people that buy a 100-unit property and then go back to buying 10-unit properties. Once you see it, I think you want to stay with scale. You can see the big benefit of it. One book that really helped me on the mindset side was the 10X rule. It shows you how when you set your goal higher, you set a big target and reverse engineer it, work your way back. It's a lot easier to figure things out, and you kind of work it back in chunks. So it's like, I know if I want to buy a $10 million property, I need to raise $2 million. I'm going to do it in these chunks, and you start with the end goal in mind and work it in reverse. It makes it a lot easier than trying to start here and just figure out how to do it. So that's a book that really helped me. I've read it a bunch of times at different stages in my life, and it always shows me, I take different pieces from it when I'm at different stages in my life.